Welcome to Paradigms at paradigms.life, the radio show and podcast that brings you inspiring people with visions of a viable future for life on Earth that includes humans. Hi, I'm Baruch, host of Paradigms. Glad to be here with you. Thanks for listening. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. We're going to meet two different musicians, both with new records out. We're starting out with a guy who is a mandolin player. He's a guitar player, but his true love is the mandolin. And so he's just released an album of solo mandolin that you're really going to love. And the next artist we're going to meet today is a woman who is a singer-songwriter. She's just released her first EP. It's really good. We're going to talk with her about her craft. So I think you're going to enjoy both of these guests, and the music is wonderful. Let's get right to it and meet my first guest on this episode of Paradigms. Mike Mullins, welcome to Paradigms.
Baruch, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me to be on. This is an honor and a pleasure.
Well, it's mutual. I got your disc in the mail, 8-string sketches, and I put it on. I love mandolin music and just really enjoyed this. I've listened to it a few times. I listened to it again this morning. It's just wonderful. I'm always curious about people. Tell me a little bit about yourself and where you come from and how music became your thing, and especially the mandolin.
Oh, yeah. Well, I started on guitar when I was 10, which was a long time ago. I'm 67. We always had music around the house. I think I grew up during the folk boom, and I remember being kind of entranced by the sounds of strings. Particularly, we had records by bands like the New Christy Minstrels and the Limelighters, and I'm not sure how mandolin clicked in there, but I do remember hearing this particular sound, and looking back, I realized it was the mandolin. At the time, though, I didn't really know what I was listening to, but then I became interested in guitar when, like so many baby boomers, when I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and that was it. I wanted a guitar, and my parents indulged me with a plastic TV Pal ukulele to start out, and then I ended up with a guitar, and I took lessons for a year or so. I exhibited some, ability and enthusiasm for the guitar, and I continued to do it all through school and high school, and but I never really bonded with electric guitar. I always liked the sound of acoustic guitar, so that's really all I did. I had an electric guitar when I was 11, but it just kind of didn't last. I was enamored of musicians that sort of gravitated around the sound of an acoustic guitar. There was Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and there was James Taylor, there was Jim Croce, there was, John Denver. But I, as far as the mandolin, that came later. I mean, I was a decent guitar player, but I felt like I was stuck in one gear, and there was another sound I was just kind of looking for. And I met a friend who I'm still performing with named Bill Griffin. He was the first really good mandolin player I ever heard, and when I heard that, I just flipped. I thought, I want to learn this. I was about 19 by then. And then I started listening to a lot of bluegrass music through my brother, who's a really fine banjo player, who I actually play in a band with today. I heard David Grisman for the first time. Anyway, I got a really cheap mandolin and just started playing it and realized this is really what I want to do. But it didn't really happen right away. It seemed like all the musical projects I became involved in, I moved to Santa Barbara when I was 21 and kind of got involved in the music scene there. But I always ended up on guitar for some reason. Even to very recently, all the musical projects I've done, I've mostly been a guitar player, which is fine. I love playing guitar, but I feel like mandolin is just more in my wheelhouse. You'd think it would be the other way around. Like if there's so many really great guitar players, you'd think there would be no shortage, but it seemed like every musical project or band I was in had a mandolin player already, and so I'd be on guitar, and I never did music really full time for a living. I always had other jobs. But eventually I met who I consider to be my mentor, David Grisman, and we became friends pretty much right away. I met him in the late 80s, and we've always stayed in touch, and he's been very supportive of my mandolin efforts. And I decided once I left my day job, I was a technical writer for years and years. I retired from that job about a year and a half ago. I was in this kind of musical comfort zone. I'd show up for gigs with my guitar and I'd play the same stuff. And anyway, I just decided I need to do something different. I really love the mandolin so much, but I've never really done it as a full thing. I've always been kind of this comfortable guitar thing, and I did one recording project where I did all the guitars and mandolins, but I thought, this is what I want to do. I really want to kind of step out of my comfort zone. I'm really not, I have to be dragged kicking and screaming out of what I kind of know and what is like this warm blanket that I wrap myself in. I'd worked out a few solo arrangements on mandolin just for fun, and I thought I really think I could do a whole album of this stuff. And I have original tunes, but I wanted to do tunes that were more or less familiar and just kind of approach them on mandolin, try and make them sound full and listenable on a little instrument that only has four notes, that is in the same range as the violin. There's really no bass, and unlike the violin, you don't really have any sustain because you don't have a long bow that you can use. You know, you have to do other techniques like tremolos to get a sustained note, which is just a staccato collection of da 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 single notes. I've heard many mandolin players over the years, do solo pieces very well, but I thought this is kind of what I wanted to do. I just really want to embrace the mandolin as my instrument of choice. And I'm not involved in any guitar projects right now, so this is the time to do it. I have the time to approach to it. So over a period of a couple of years, I recorded 8-string sketches and finished it up during the pandemic. And I wanted to do tunes that were, like I said, more or less familiar and that people might have heard before, and approach it on the mandolin. I try and approach the tunes almost like it's a keyboard instrument. Even though I don't play keyboard, I try to make it so it's not just a collection of single notes playing the melody. I try and get some chord movement behind them that kind of binds the contour of the melody together and kind of takes you someplace. And I'm at the point in my life now where if I try something and fail spectacularly, I'm okay with it. And if it works, it works. And I'm pretty encouraged by the response to it. I just really love playing the mandolin. I've had support from my mentor, David Grissman. I'm actually on his record label now, Acoustic Disc. It's the first actual label I've been on in about 20 years. So that's nice. So that's kind of what brought me to this journey, picking up the mandolin again. And just, I have other influences who I've been really inspired by. Chris Thile, for one, he's probably considered to be the world's finest overall mandolinist, in my view. But he's done some great solo recordings, and I'm just very inspired by the other players that I hear who are out there playing this funny little instrument. So that's kind of my story up till today.
That's the first part of my conversation with Mike Mullins. Humble, nice guy, really talented. Let's hear something now from his album, 8-String Sketches. This one's called For All We Know. Mike Mullins, and you're listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life. Mike Mullins from his new record, 8-String Sketches. That's For All We Know. Isn't that beautiful? Here's the next part of my conversation with Mike Mullins. You know, most people don't listen to solo mandolin. You hear the mandolin in a bluegrass band, or even like, you know, the Blood Oranges, Jimmy Ryan, what they've done really
Sure, of course,
mandolin in sort of rockabilly stuff. So I think people are more used to that. So to sit down and listen to a record of solo mandolin is probably unusual for most folks, and it's unusual for me. But I sat down, I listened to this. It's really beautiful. It is not monochromatic, plunky, just the melody. It's almost orchestral in that you've really created a lot of different music around the central melody line. And the familiar songs, I got to tell you, I saw the titles. They don't sound to me like the familiar song. You've recreated them, which I think is a great thing. I mean, this is what came through you. So I think that's very cool.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the kind words. And yeah, what I've tried to do is just be an interpreter of these tunes. You know, some of them have been around a long time, and a lot of people have heard them. There's some others that are a little more obscure, but just kind of unlock what the mandolin has to offer for them as best I can. You know, so yeah, they're interpretations of a lot of familiar tunes from around the world and across time. I really enjoyed doing this project, and I love performing it. I haven't gotten to do it that often, of course, with the pandemic and everything. But tonight I'm playing in Ojai at a really nice little concert series, Ojai, California, for those of you who haven't heard of Ojai. So I'm thrilled to be doing it. And you mentioned bluegrass. I did have a pretty heavy background in bluegrass, although I never really made a study. You know, like there's almost a, not monkish is not the word I want to use, but there's a very, like I know people who play the Bill Monroe style of mandolin, and it's a real discipline, you know, to embrace that style. And I never really did that with any particular style on mandolin. I just kind of was influenced by a lot of different players and tried to incorporate what they do into whatever style I've come up with. You know, I say I'm most influenced by is probably David Grisman.
And you couldn't have picked a better mentor. I mean, Dave Grisman.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, I consider him my mentor. He's been such a good friend to me and over the years. And I mean, here's a guy who's at the pinnacle of this instrument and, somehow managed to get on his radar and become like he treats me like a peer and a friend. And as much as I love and respect the man and his playing, I'm no longer just completely, oh my God, I'm so starstruck. I'm standing here with David Grisman. It's we're able to play together and make cool sounds. We never recorded together, but hopefully I'll rectify that someday. You know, we're both getting older, and if he can find the time, I'd like to do a project with him at some point.
Well, and our generation grew up with, Olden in the Way, Peter Rowan, and all those, and now we're Olden in the Way.
They sort of reformed that band. Of course, Vassar's gone, but they called it Olden in the Gray. So I think they did a couple reunion things with Herb Peterson playing banjo.
I grew up in Vermont in my teenage years, so I grew up seeing people like
Sure.
Vassar Clemens and Dave Grisman and Peter Rowan. They came through all the time, and that was some of the music we listened to as kids. It was fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of went from being, a singer-songwriter. I mean, I've written a lot of songs, but not so much for a long time. It's funny. I'm pretty good with words because I was a writer as a profession, and I'm okay at coming up with tunes, but putting them together, I've always found really strangely difficult. So as a consequence, these days I write a lot of instrumentals. Most of them are on my phone. Like I'll get an idea and I'll immediately record it. And I realized the other day I have about 220 ideas on there. Some of them are almost finished, and others are just like licks that I've just come up with and then put them on there so they don't forget them. And I guess my next order of business, or one of my orders of business, will be to go through this stuff and do another project of things that are original, because I have a lot of stuff, but life's gotten interesting since I've retired from my day job, and I feel like I'm basically kind of a shy person, and I've never been brimming with self-confidence, so this is forcing me to kind of open up to new possibilities and paradigms, if you will.
Interesting guy, huh? He really has played a lot of music with a lot of people, and he loves the mandolin, and so do I. What a beautiful instrument. He plays it so amazingly. Here is another track from 8-String Sketches, and then we'll be back with the final part of my conversation with Mike Mullins. You might recognize this. It's Hallelujah. That's Hallelujah from 8-String Sketches by Mike Mullins. And now here's the final part of my conversation with Mike. You know, one of the things I like to ask people, and I think a lot of people do what you do, which is they record their ideas on whatever their personal device is, which I think is the best use for those things. I really love that. But one of the things that I'm very aware of, I talk to lots of creative folks, is that in order to do this, there has to be some place inside you where you give yourself permission.
Yeah.
And not everyone give themselves permission. There's a zillion stifled creatives out there who don't give themselves permission to do whatever it is. But then there are the people who do. And whether you have a ton of confidence and you're a big I'm out on stage person, or I know people who are like, nope, it's just studio and I'm happy to release records, but I have no interest in playing in front of people. I'm too shy. What is the permission
Yeah.
place?
Yeah. That really is a great way to put it. It's the permission thing. For a long time, I felt limited by what it was. I'm not blaming anyone else, but I had a certain function I was in a band for 25 years. We sort of became less active and we're all doing other things now during the pandemic. I was in a band called the Cache Valley Drifters. It's an Americana trio. It used to be a four-piece, but it's been together in some form for gosh, since the 70s. I came along, I joined them in 1993, and they needed a guitarist. And these guys are like my brothers. I love playing with them, and it's a lot of fun. But that was my sole musical expression for a long time, was playing guitar with these guys. And there was a particular thing we did, and I kind of locked myself into that. My first exit of my comfort zone was probably around 2007. I decided finally I was going to do a project of my own. I've been on like probably 100 studio albums, various artists, and some guitar, some mandolin. But I did my first project called Windows of Time, and that was a lot of the stuff I've written, a lot of songs I've written. I have a lot of really great musicians on this record. I mean, I know that's not the record we're talking about, but that was my first foray into doing something of my own. I have like Gabe Witcher from the Punch Brothers is on there, and Jim Kerwin, David Grisman's bass player, a lot of other fine players. And Watch Your Feet, I just dropped a couple names, but but that was my first. It took me 7 years to do that project because I did it so slowly. I was working full time and raising a son and having a lot of stuff going on in my life. My wife is going through a serious illness at the time. She's fine now, I'm happy to say, but most of my focus was taken up in other ways, and music was basically really relegated to the background. The permission thing just kind of came about was, gosh, none of us are getting any younger, and once I hit 65, I thought, I'm really done with this work routine that I'm doing, and I want to just devote whatever time I have left to doing something I'm good at instead of something that I'm just sort of okay at, like being a technical writer. I never felt like I was that great at my day job. It was basically a paycheck. It was never something, and health insurance and a 401k, but it wasn't my passion. It wasn't my purpose. And I spent so many hours a day doing this, and I had precious little energy for anything else. I mean, I was fortunate to have a job that enabled me to buy food and pay the mortgage and make sure my son had clothes, and that everything was taken care of. But I really wanted to give myself permission, as you said, to do what it is I think I could be good at. And that would give my life a lot more meaning and purpose. And it's not just about going out to gigs and getting paid. It's nice to make money, but I would do this if I never earned another dime, because it's what I need to do. And I like doing it for people. And there's only a certain amount of satisfaction to sitting around at home and learning new stuff. And then I want to get out and perform it, because that's my other comfort zone thing. I want to do this in front of folks and share it with them. And does that make me nervous sometimes? Yeah, especially being on stage by myself. For years, I would never even contemplate that. But now I really enjoy playing solo, being alone on a stage with a guitar and a mandolin, and there's a lot on the line, as there's nobody there to prop you up. But I really enjoy it. It's terrifying and liberating at the same time.
Mike, thank you for talking with me and for this beautiful music. It's really a nice record.
Oh, you're quite welcome, Baruch. I just so appreciate you asking me to be on here, and I'm really glad you enjoyed A-String Sketches, and I hope a lot of other people do too. It's just really great to have it be out there, just doing its thing.
Mike Mullins, thank you so much for being on the show. What a great guy. And 8-String Sketches is a really wonderful collection of beautiful mandolin music. I hope folks will check it out. Mike's website, MikeMullinsmusic.com, MikeMullins music.com. We'd love to hear your response to this music. Leave a comment and check out our other episodes now on YouTube. All right, now we're going to meet another wonderful musician. She's just released a new record. She's going to tell us all about it. Now let's meet my second guest on this episode of Paradigms at paradigms.life. Karen Turner, welcome to Paradigms.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. I've been enjoying very much your new EP, Tonight There Might Be Stars. I'd like to know a little bit your story, how you got to the point of making this. Like, how did you learn to love music and like...
Yeah, gosh. I mean, I have loved music since I was little. I used to sing in the closet. I used to be too afraid to actually sing in front of anyone, so I would hide in the closet and sing. And my dad walked by once and he said, "What was that?" And I said, "Me," so I just enjoyed it. And I loved to try to sound like the people I admired. So, and then from there, it just was, I just got, completely in love with music and all kinds of bands. And all the songs I wanted to learn, that was the passion that got me to take lessons and so I could learn the songs so that I could sing them, so it was just, that was where it started. And it just was always in me. But then for years, I was in bands in high school and college. And I actually had an acoustic duo in the 90s with a friend of mine. And we had a demo, and we did all that. And then I got married and pregnant. And then just everything kind of fell away. But I always kept doing it. I always kept, writing. And I've had tons of journals. I'm always writing. But this is special because I finally just gave myself permission to do what I've always wanted to do, because I've always I held my heroes up to such high standards that I thought I could never reach that. So I never gave myself permission to just make mistakes and sound terrible and go through what you have to go through. So I think just with the pandemic and everything that happened, I started taking more songwriting classes, and I have a great support group. And I just decided I'm going to be messy, and it's going to be not great for a while. But then it slowly started to materialize. And I think the word is permission for me. It's just finally just saying, yes, life is short. You've got more years behind you than ahead. And I just wanted to just give myself the best chance I could.
I love that. And I love it that you focus on permission. It's actually, now I don't have to ask you that question. That's one of the questions I'd like to ask people about. So you're surrounded by instruments.
Yes.
You play them all.
I do. I'm not better at some than others, but yeah.
And the songwriting, these are all original songs, and they're not simple. There's some complexity here.
Thank you.
Oh, and look who Mary Lou Fulton is on here. Oh.
You know Mary Lou?
She was on the show a couple months ago.
Oh, I didn't know that. She's one of my really good friends.
She is awesome.
Oh my God, I don't think she knew that I was doing this with you, because she knew oh, that's so funny. She's one of my friends that I've met through the LA School of Songwriting, and she is incredible, and what a generous soul she is. And she's just always just giving of her knowledge and her time, and she's incredible.
We had a wonderful conversation. So so these are not simple songs. These are complex emotionally.
Yeah.
They're complex lyrically. What's your process like?
It's so funny. They all come around differently. I didn't say I'm going to write this album and it's going to all kind of be this certain kind of, it ended up being this kind of cohesive thing that I didn't plan on really at all. Again, permission, a lot of drafts. I do a lot of journal writing, and I'll get an idea, and then I'll circle interesting words, and then I'll, kind of see it come together, and then I'll get my instrument, and you just kind of grab and choose, and there's not a one way to do it. But as far as lyrically, some of the songs, some just kind of wrote themselves. That story, Queen Kahumanu Highway, was actually a true story that happened. I didn't know how to write about it, because I was like, this is an incredible thing. How do I do this? A wise songwriter told me, he just to write the story, just write it down, just write, so not thinking, oh my God, I'm writing a song, but I just wrote what happened. And somehow doing that, I was able to piece together the verses and then have hopefully a moment of when the chorus happens that oh, this is, I don't know. Sometimes there's a magic that happens that you don't really plan for, and you just always hope for it.
But that's brilliant, and I never thought of that. It's like sculpting. You just carve out what doesn't belong.
Yeah.
carve it
Exactly.
off, and you're left with the essence of.
The class I've taken, the classes are, I can't say enough about them because I mean, with Mary Lou as well. I mean, having you go and show what you have and then people going, not criticizing, but just like, hey, maybe you can say this better. Maybe this needs to be tightened. Just, and to be willing to make mistakes and to, I was always really scared of rewriting and editing. It was just, I hated that. I thought, oh, if it doesn't come out the first time, then forget it. But that's so wrong and just a beginner's thing to do. So I really learned a lot.
That's the first part of my conversation with Karen Turner. Wonderful, huh? Let's hear something from her new record now. Tonight There Might Be Stars. We're going to hear a song called Wish I Could Just Stop By. Here's Karen Turner.
Just left a party and I roll my window down. Surrender to the Santa Anas. Up on the right, the street sign from my past, and I'm a kid again, tumbling in the grass. Turning down your well-worn road, my car slows down. There's still bougainvillea around your door. They changed the paint and the driveway looks repaved, but your balcony still beckoning to me. I wish I could just stop by, be on the couch. I'd sit down and lay my head on your chest. The one true place I could ever rest. Wish I could just stop by. Driving away in the San Fernando haze, home's a paper map that's torn apart. For all I know, I'm traveling hidden roads, and if I'm lucky, tonight there might be stars. I wish I could just stop by, be on the couch. I'd sit down and lay my head on your chest. The one true place I could ever rest. Wish I could just stop by. I wish I could just stop by. You'd be on the couch, I'd sit down and lay my head on your chest. I wish I could just stop by, the one true place I could ever rest. But I'm still in my car on Ventura Boulevard. But there's no street you live on.
Wish I Could Just Stop By. Wonderful music. I think you're going to like this record a lot. Here's the next part of my conversation with Karen Turner. Your life, obviously, is the material, your experiences. You know, these are all original. And since you started putting things into song, does that affect the way you experience things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like what it does for me is I can look back at that song and feel like that experience is now this thing that I could relive in a way that I've learned something and that I can see how that affected me or what I did, how did I turn that moment into this thing that now lives on? Like,
It's interesting. I mean, things just, you know how magic is. With no intention of doing this, I'm suddenly having a lot of shows with songwriters. I mean, there's always musicians, but suddenly there's this focus on people's process in writing songs and taking an experience that turns into ideas and then turning it into, well, when you turn it into a poem or a song, you change the linearity of it. You create something more expansive or with more open to interpretation.
right.
That takes you to a different place in your own brain when you're the one doing it, I would think.
Yeah, like you're saying that, I'm thinking of all the songwriters that I love and my heroes, and for so many years I would just be like, how do they do that? Like, how can I ever do that? And I really think there is no one way. Everybody's process is different, and everybody's trusting what's coming out is a huge part of it.
And
Because
there's that permission again.
oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. Because so many, like I'll do something and I'll think because we're so judgmental of our own stuff and I am and just I used to be. I'm getting better, but just so just hard on ourselves. Like you're basically very childlike when you're in that creative kind of place, and you need to really let that child out and let her play and make mistakes and get dirty and then later, the editor could come in and go, okay, well, now here's what you did. Let's see what we can make from this. So, yeah, I mean, I still don't know like how things are like there's no, like I said, there's no really one right way.
Who are some of your heroes?
Oh my God, so many. Amy Mann from well, she was Till Tuesday, and then just I love her lyrics. I just think she's such a prolific lyricist, and just how she frames things and her sense of humor comes out, and her intelligence. I just love her writing. But musically, I have so many. I love the band Keen. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're an English band. I just love their melodic sense. I love Sean Colvin. I love obviously Joni Mitchell and Counting Crows. I like too. I mean, it's weird. I'm trying to do like a touchstone mix right now of like who do I love to kind of. It's actually a great exercise to do to get in touch with what you respond to. So I can go from anywhere from like Eminem because I love the power and the something in that the visceral song. I'm not a rapper obviously, but just you can appreciate the
Oh,
different
yeah.
kinds of music, right? I mean, I love Stevie Wonder, I love soul, I love funk, I love rock, I love
I love hearing this.
It's funny, I'm in this folk, place right now because these are the songs that came out, but I'm definitely hoping to, experiment with more things and more types of music and getting all that, other things that speak to me out.
It's so interesting watching, and I mention Joni a lot because
Yeah, exactly.
Joni Mitchell, she's just
Oh,
the greatest.
the greatest.
But we have this body of work where we can see where she started and where she got to, and we are allowed access to her progression and her process. I find that amazing because
Yeah.
a wonderful, now passed away guy who was on the show who was a minister said, when people get old, most of them, they all go to Buddhism, and a lot of musicians say, yeah, when musicians get old, they all go to jazz. It's like there is something that happens as we live our lives and go through our experiences, and it obviously changes us.
Totally.
And so you're in an earlier part of your process, you're not, Joni's in her 70s. You're not there yet.
In fact, Mary Lou always says to me, she's like, you couldn't have written the songs that you wrote just now 20 years ago,
Right.
and it's true.
Exactly.
We do carry our stories with us, and however we get them out, whether it's through songwriting or a book or, journaling, whatever, they come out when because I would say, God, why didn't I do this earlier? Why didn't I have this, give myself permission 20 years ago?
You couldn't have.
Exactly. And it's just so, that whole Zen thing of just trying to be where you are and being okay with this is exactly how it's supposed to be and the time it's supposed to be. And hopefully.
It must be interesting for you to revisit your older stuff.
Oh my God, it is. It definitely is. And now that I have experience and I'm more confident, I can go back and go, oh, that was a great idea. I can revisit that, and now I can, take it apart and see like what's the seed in it that's good that I can keep, and what, as opposed to before where I didn't have any reference. I didn't have any frame of reference. I just thought, oh, this isn't as good as, Sean Colvin, so forget it.
We humans tend to be critical of ourselves.
I used to call myself a recovering songwriter. The class I'm in now that has been so great, I was there 10 years ago, and I just sat there. I didn't bring anything in. I just listened to everybody. I was petrified. And so I really realized that, the whole thing about doing things that scare you is just so important. And, it's not easy, but it really pays off. It really, really does.
You're really following your inspiration.
Finally. I feel like we all have that inside us when we're born even. I think there's like that little voice, and I always wanted to do music, but I always would have well, no, how are you gonna make a living? All the shoulds and all the things, and not that it's not about money, but I didn't come from a musical family. I'm the only person that is that way in my family. So I also felt different in that way. So I think just finally listening to that is so fulfilling for me right now. So I'm like, I'm good. Like I'm who I'm supposed to be, I think, finally.
I love hearing about people giving themselves permission to voice their creativity. I think it's one of the greatest things humans have going for us. Here's another track from Karen Turner's record, Tonight There Might Be Stars. This is Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway.
Mama left us in the spring. We gather around to say goodbye. We kissed her forehead one last time and watched the afternoon get swallowed by the night. 7 months later, it's Thanksgiving time, her favorite holiday. We couldn't stay here one more day. Heard a breeze whisper and fly away, so we boarded a plane, headed for the Gold Coast in the rain, where volcanoes created the islands. While having drinks at the steakhouse, my sister thinks she saw Mom's name in lava rocks off the freeway. Well, that's crazy talk, but let's check anyway. Green Ka'ahumanu Highway, spirits swirl the warm night air, reading signs along the way. If you look closely, messages appear while we searching in vain, headed for the Gold Coast in the rain, where volcanoes created the islands. Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway, Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway. Driving slow, eyes scanning the road, about to give up trying. But then we saw it in the black and white rocks, her full name spelled out in plain sight. Pulling over on the shoulder to try to get a closer look, staring in what felt like her eyes, taking pictures while my hands shook. But we never explained what happened on that Gold Coast in the rain, where volcanoes created the islands. Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway, Queen Ka'ahumanu Highway.
It's Karen Turner from her new EP, Tonight There Might Be Stars. That one's called Queen Ka'aumanu Highway. Karen's songs are all original. She's really a good songwriter. Here's the final part of my conversation with Karen Turner. Do you perform publicly? Is that something you love doing? Or
Yes.
how is that for you?
I love it. I have not yet performed my original songs yet, but I am part of an acoustic duo with someone else who we do harmonies, we do all covers, but we have learned like hundreds of songs. So it's been really great to get my chops up and to get my performing chops, comfortable. So now now the next step is to get a set together with my original stuff and get a little band together. But it's so much, there's nothing like it. I can't imagine how fun it would be for me to play my songs to people.
Yeah, I want to talk with you after you do that and hear what it was like.
Oh my God, I'll let you know for sure.
Please do.
That's the plan.
That will be amazing. The title of your EP, Tonight There Might Be Stars, it's an interesting title. Firstly, it's not the name of any of the songs, so there's something else there. What is that?
Well, thanks for asking that. So I was not sure what to name it for a long time. I'm like, what am I naming these groups of songs? And everybody's like, just relax, it'll come to you. And in Wish I Could Just Stop By, there is that line, Tonight There Might Be Stars, in that song. So I love the idea I feel like the whole idea of the whole EP right now, or I didn't think about it before, but it just feels like these things that you can't see that are there, like these hidden messages, this hope, that sometimes we don't see. And so I think the full line is, I'm traveling hidden roads, and if I'm lucky, tonight there might be stars. It just felt like it enveloped the whole idea of the songs for me.
I love that.
And I love anything space related and planets and stars. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
When I die, I want to be a space amoeba.
I love that. I totally love that. I didn't know that you could be that. That's so cool.
So you've done it. It's out there. It's getting some attention. I imagine you'll be on the radio. There will be more interviews.
I hope so. I sent out a bunch of these CDs to a lot of DJs, and I have gotten, they're playing, on the college radio and a lot of the independent stations. So I'm so grateful for that.
Well, it's good. That's why.
Well, thank you. I have to give props to my producer, Brendan Flavin, who is amazing. So he definitely helped bring these songs to where they are now. So I learned so much about production with him as well. So.
Which is actually really fun stuff.
Oh yeah, it is. I've taken classes in it, but I wasn't prepared to actually do it for my there's so much to it to get good at it and to have, you just want the best vehicle for your songs to, be, and the process was so interesting.
I mean, now that we do all this with a lot of electronica, it's sort of funny. It's like we use all these filters and things to get the cleanest, most unaffected sound.
Right. Well, what I love about Brendan, he's very much, he's young, but he's very much like an old soul, and he loves the 70s music, and he loves how, the Beatles, for instance, did all their recordings just live in one room, with a mic here, and you just got that energy, that live energy. And so he definitely comes from that sensibility, which I loved. And so we, I think we tried to maintain a more organic sound, and not so definitely. I didn't want it to sound too produced or anything.
And what's interesting is that seems to be a trend now. More and more people really moving away from the heavily produced sound and wanting it to be not stripped down per se, but just
Right.
really clean.
It's all, yeah. I used to think production meant that goes away from the soul of the song, but it's actually not true. Like the production can make the song more emotionally poignant, or it can bring those valleys, and can't you know what I'm saying?
I do. It's great. Well, Karen, you're on your way with this. I mean, you're on your way. You have a life. You're a person, but in terms of yeah, but this is really going to go somewhere. It's really, really good, and a good song takes you on a ride. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to wonder, what is she saying? You just sort of surrender to it, and it takes you somewhere. And it may not take you somewhere you understand, but it takes you somewhere with a feeling and images and sensation. And this does that. And so it's alive.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. I'm just very happy to hear that. That sometimes, you want that to be the experience, and to hear you reflect that back is really, really satisfying, and I'm really grateful. Thank you.
I'm glad. Karen Turner, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for the record. I'm really glad you sent it to me. Thank you.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for having me.
Karen Turner, thank you so much for being on Paradigms. Really enjoyed talking with you. And Tonight There Might Be Stars is a wonderful debut record. Really good. Folks, if you'd like to know more about Karen, hear more of this record, follow her career because she's going somewhere, her website is KarenTurnerMusic.com. Very simple. KarenTurnerMusic.com. Check her out. Check out the rest of this record. We only heard a little bit of it. Karen Turner, someone to keep your eyes on. I hope you enjoyed meeting these two artists, Mike Mullins and Karen Turner, and hearing their music. I really enjoyed talking with both of them. And, I love music, and I love inspired music, and these folks are making that. So, very cool. If you enjoyed this episode of Paradigms, I hope you'll check out our archive at the Paradigms website, paradigms.life, and in iTunes, and wherever else you find your podcasts. Paradigms is there. Paradigms has also recently launched a YouTube channel. So we're making videos of our podcasts and putting them up on YouTube for you to enjoy. Just go to YouTube and do a search for Paradigms Podcast. Paradigms has a Patreon campaign going. We really appreciate our Patreon supporters. It costs some money to put Paradigms together, and there are no ads, so your support matters. Patreon.com/paradigms. Thank you so much. Music, creativity, these are beautiful things. Humans are capable of great beauty. We're also capable of really some pretty serious ugliness, and we see both in the world all the time. It's easy to focus on the ugliness and for that to be debilitating. And at the same time, it's important not to be in denial of the ugliness, otherwise we can't change it. It's all a balancing act. How's your balancing act going? Mine definitely has its ups and downs. Right at the moment, I think I'm doing okay, but you never know, right? You can hear a piece of information about something happening in the world, and it can really do a number on you. I think part of what's so hard is that we feel powerless, often, to affect these things. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. That's something to think about. What can we do to affect things realistically and make things better for everyone? It's a question I ask myself all the time. I know I'm not the only one. I'm sure you ask yourself those questions. What kind of answers are you coming up with? All right, we are going to close out this episode with one last song from Karen Turner's new EP, Tonight There Might Be Stars. It's called If the World Is Ending. And let's let the word for the week be balance. Let's work with balance, how we balance out different actions and feelings and beliefs and all those things. Where is balance? The middle path. All right, Baruch signing off for Paradigms. We'll be back next time with more inspiring people. Until then, contemplate balance and be well.
If the world is ending, then why is spring sending me gardenias in bloom, the sheltering moon? I'm humming this tune in spite of it all. If the world is ending, then why is the wind bending my ear, whispering stay, hear what I say, a beautiful day made for
You've been listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.